My Yom Kippur sermon of last year. Do you remember what I shared with you? It would be okay if you didn't. The shelf life of sermons, I understand, are short. But this particular sermon elicited more comments throughout the year than any other. I spoke about the importance of our unplugging for a day. It is a good practice, powering off from time to time, challenging to be sure, but worthwhile, because we deserve the silence and are entitled to it. And thus I suggested that we might need a day of rest. Yom Kippur is, after all, even when it does not fall on Shabbat, Yom Kippur is considered a Shabbat Shabbaton, the Sabbath of Sabbaths, the ultimate day of rest. And so I proposed not just that we turn our phones to silent or vibrate, but rather that we turn our phones off, and our tablets and our other gizmos as well. For in a very real way, I was suggesting that we not leave ourselves to our own devices. That's good, right? Now that was my message of last year. I spoke of the price that constant connectivity extracts from our bodies and our brains. I spoke of the tremendous toll being so in sync with our devices takes on our psyches. And I'm asking that of you again, to unplug. Yes, the noise and the chatter, the hum and the buzz in our ears that makes our hearts race. Because tonight, I want to open a conversation about how being constantly connected, being always distracted, is taking a toll on our relationships. 10 days ago, on Rosh Hashanah, we took up the question, who are we? And we spoke about the fact that we are each B'Tselem Elohim. Every one of us is created in the divine image. This means that we are reflections of the divine. We talked about that. The question on Yom Kippur we take up is, who will we be? Who will we be in the year now begun? Who will we be in our own lives? And who will we be in the lives of those closest to us? There is a new term for an experience with which I would imagine you, like I, are growing increasingly familiar. It is a malady of our own making, and it is called FOMO. F-O-M-O. Have you heard of it? It's an acronym for fear of missing out. It's true. I heard it on NPR. Now, FOMO is one of those terms that defines itself. For everyone in this room, I suspect no additional explanation is needed. FOMO is self-explanatory. But the increasing sense of FOMO, of the fear of missing out in our lives, particularly when we stop and pause long enough to consider the growing sense of distance and alienation, the silence that so many of us are experiencing in our interpersonal relationships at home and within our families, our increasing sense of FOMO is worth our exploring. I recently read that the average smartphone user checks his or her phone every 6.5 minutes. But that's just an idle curiosity when compared to the reality that such activity brings in its wake. Consider that young people today prefer to text than to type and prefer typing to talking. And as a result, our relationships with our electronic devices, well, they're causing us, when we do speak to one another, to give but 1/3 of our attention to the person with whom we're conversing. FOMO. And that's when we're speaking. In an era of the iPhone and Facebook and Twitter, our electronic devices provide an emotionally frictionless experience that is available on demand exactly and only when we want it. People, on the other hand, are complicated. Interpersonal relationships, as we know, can be frustrating and messy. Is it any wonder then, in the words of the poet, that we live by each other day by day, yet as time goes by, we have less to say? Do you remember the old couplet we used to sing when we were kids? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And then we learned that the riddle was a lie. Words can hurt, even more than sticks and stones. But silence can hurt even more than words. It happened that a rabbi was officiating a funeral, and when the service was over, the mourner would not leave the graveside. The rabbi stood with the man and then, gently placing his hand on the shoulder of the gentleman, tried to lead him away, but he wouldn't go. "The service is over. It's time for us to go," the rabbi said. But the man shook him off. "You don't understand. I loved my wife." "I know you did," the rabbi replied, "but the service is over, and it's time for us to go." The man shook him off again. "You don't understand. I loved my wife, and once I almost told her." Can you imagine the pain? His pain, to be sure, but imagine her silent suffering also. So with credit to Rabbi Sidney Greenberg, permit me to offer this update. Sticks and stones are hard on bones if aimed with angry art, and words can sting like anything, but silence breaks the heart. Silence hurts 1,000 times more than sticks and stones or even angry words. One single act of thoughtlessness can destroy a relationship, and the same can be said of acts of emotional indifference, neglect, and heartbreaking silence as well. For all the advances in our ability to communicate instantly with people around the globe that we've never met, the fact remains that in the words of Melinda Gates, technology is just a tool. Deep human connection, however, is very different. Human connection is not a tool. Human connection is not a means to an end. True human connection is the end, the purpose, and the result of a meaningful life. And only deep human connections will inspire the most amazing acts of love and generosity and humanity. So it is that on Yom Kippur, for all our futuristic technology affords us, by way of near frictionless, ever-available, and ever-ready relationships with devices that ask nothing of us, the human need for connection and community and belonging, in spite of how frustrating real-time, roll-up-your-sleeves relationships shared over many years can be, our human need for connection and community and belonging remain the same as ever. After all, no amount of virtual pokes will ever replace the gentle touch of one human being lovingly reaching out to hold the hand of another. Or in the words of Nobel laureate William Faulkner, everything is changed except the human heart. And so the question for us on this cusp of a new year is, who will we choose to be? Will we be as one who would sooner absent himself from his own life than engage in the challenging and deeply satisfying life's work of cultivating human relationships? Will we be as one who would rather keep her feelings bottled up inside in a well-defended place, or we choose to be among those committed to expressing our emotions and sharing our feelings, opening up and coming to know once again those with whom we live? Being intimate is to be vulnerable. And to open oneself to the realities of a real-time relationship is to risk being rebuffed and disappointed and hurt. But so do exclusively real-time relationships with complicated people, each a unique and equal counterpart to ourselves. So too do these interactions provide us with the opportunity to realize a level of companionship, a level of connection, a level of acceptance and love we can only begin to imagine. And if we are to develop and grow and mature and improve as human beings in this new year, we shall do this only within the context of real-time relationships. And so may it be that in the year ahead we find the courage to express our feelings and our truth, sharing ourselves with at least one other person, ideally someone very close to us from whom we may be somewhat distant now, especially when we are not doing okay, especially when the silence becomes palpable, especially at those precious times when we need a friend, a partner, a companion, when we need the help of another. In the year ahead, rather than suffering in distracted silence, and rather than allowing others to know our indifference and our lassitude, let us choose to be among those who will commit in the year ahead to letting our closest family members and friends, our neighbors and classmates and colleagues know how very, very much they are appreciated, how deeply they are cared for, and how very truly we love them before it's too late. My friends, it is not sufficient to come here today and silence your phone, though this you should do if you have not done already, but it is not enough. On this night among all nights, and tomorrow throughout the day, we silence our phones so that we might hear the silence between us, and we disconnect our devices so we might reconnect face to face, reaching out to hold hand in hand, listening and speaking and sharing heart to heart. For as we enter the new year 5774, it will be in these ways that we will tune into the real-time relationships that will sustain us, that will define us, and that will bring us blessing. Amen.